Israel launches ground offensive against Gaza. The Gaza invasion has begun. Israeli tanks and infantry rolled into Gaza after nightfall on Saturday, launching a ground offensive in a widening war against Hamas. But the Israeli defense minister said, "Will not be easy, and it will not be short." The ground operation was preceded by several hours of heavy artillery fire after dark, igniting flames and smoke in the night sky. Machine gun fire rattled as bright tracer rounds flashed through the darkness, and the crash of hundreds and hundreds of shells sent up streaks of fire. Artillery fired illuminating rounds, sending streaks of bright light drifting down over Gaza's densely packed neighborhoods. Intense gun battles could be heard as troops crossed the border into Gaza, marching single file. They were backed up by helicopter gunships and tanks. Gaza will not be paved with flowers for you. It will be paved with fire and hail, Hamas has warned Israeli forces. A Hamas spokesman said in a televised speech, Gaza will become a graveyard for Israeli soldiers. And once again, the defense minister of Israel said, this will not be easy and it will not be short. I don't want to disillusion anybody and residents of the South. They will go through more difficult days, he added. We do not seek war, but we will not abandon our citizens to the ongoing Hamas attacks. Israeli officials have said that the goal is to strike at Hamas's foundations and that the operation could take many long days. Israeli security officials say the objective is not to reoccupy Gaza. The depth and the intensity of the ground operation will depend on parallel diplomatic efforts, the officials said. 8 days of fighting so far have left more than 460 Palestinians dead and rising. At least 4 Israelis were killed by rocket fire. Gaza is densely populated, and intense urban warfare in those conditions could exact a much higher civilian toll. The United Nations estimates that at least a quarter of the Palestinians killed so far were civilians. The United Nations Security Council has scheduled a special meeting to discuss the latest developments. Before the ground incursion began, heavy Israeli artillery fire hit east of Gaza City and locations where Hamas fighters were deployed. The artillery shells were apparently intended to detonate Hamas explosive devices and mines planted along the border area before troops marched in. Hamas has also threatened to resume suicide attacks inside Israel. And Hamas spokesman also said, be prepared for a unique surprise. This is more war than ever before, and all this will lead to more tensions, more anger. Yes, it's ratcheting up the tensions around the world. Hamas has long prepared for Israel's invasion, digging tunnels and rigging some areas with explosives. At the start of the offensive, Israeli artillery hit some of the border areas, apparently to try and detonate hidden explosives, but they will probably not get them all. The Israeli government said tens of thousands of reserve soldiers are being mobilized as the offensive in Gaza widens. Before the ground incursion began, defense officials said approximately 10,000 Israeli soldiers had massed along the border in recent days. The offensive began last Saturday, with a week of aerial bombardment of Hamas targets. in an attempt to halt Hamas rocket attacks that were reaching farther into Israel than ever before. Despite the military onslaught or offensive, Hamas kept firing at Israeli towns, and Israeli officials said diplomatic efforts did not produce a satisfactory plan to guarantee a halt to rockets. Israel initially held off on a ground offensive, apparently in part because of concern about high casualties among Israeli troops and because of fears of getting bogged down in Gaza. There are targets that can be done from the air and targets that cannot, said the Israeli foreign minister. She said Israel had broader objectives than just trying to stop Gaza militants from firing rockets into the country's south. She told the interviewer that toppling Hamas was a strategic Israeli objective, but said that more than one military offensive might be needed to achieve Israel's aims. Yes, this will guarantee more. I cannot accept a state controlled by a terror organization in Gaza, she said. One rocket fired from Palestine, or from Gaza, scored a direct hit on a house in the southern city of Escalation on Saturday, and another struck a bomb shelter there, leaving its above-ground entrance scarred by shrapnel and blasting a parked bus. And Hamas was still able to launch 29 rockets into Israel on Saturday, in spite of the ongoing operation. Israel says that it wants international monitors or an internationally monitored truce, but it is unclear whether Hamas would agree to such supervision, which could limit its control of Gaza. Hamas has ruled the area since seizing control in June 2007. And Hamas's first reaction to the proposal for international monitors, a government spokesman said early Saturday that the group would not allow Israel or the international community to impose any arrangement, though he left the door open to a negotiated solution or settlement, whatever that might be. Anyone who thinks that the change in the Palestinian arena can be achieved through jet fighters, bombs, and tanks, and without dialogue, is mistaken, the government spokesman said. Anyway, this is more war than ever before. And this is ongoing. And once again, yes, it is increasing the tensions around the world in many different places. Luke chapter 21, verse 20. And when ye shall see Jerusalem surrounded with armies, then know that the desolation thereof is close. Yes, it is close at hand. And once again, these are all more signs of the end times, transition days. And the transition, it's begun. It's happening. And yes, all these